Hello and welcome back to Modding Transport Fever 2 things with Steve. I am today in the bedroom because the weather has gone crap. And I'm just going to quick play on the VLC. It's the same old same old. I'm just going to talk over well, it's gone badly. Just going to talk over an accelerated version of footage of me modelling Puffing Billy, getting some more reference images for you. Today's video will be quite a bit longer than yesterday's. I've recorded from about half an hour to 45 minutes, so that should cut down to around about 15, maybe less. So we'll see how short we can get it. I might cut it down even further, who knows, depends about speeding up. Apologies for noise of the microphone. The laptop likes to really activate its fans, so if you hear like a that's the laptop doing that. And I'm also on my bed, so there might be occasional rustling of me moving around. Anyway, what I'm doing right now is I found out, like, just after I finished the recording yesterday, that the boiler wasn't exactly level. So I again readjusted some of the vertexes so they were actually parallel. And today we're going to be mainly focusing on the main aspect of the engine, which is all the machinery on top, the allows for the motion. You can see up there it's quite a complicated section of beams and rods and that. And we're going to try and see if we can remake that in the model. It was quite a challenge actually to be able to actually look at the engine and see how it worked, what parts will move, what parts don't move, and how, in what manner they do move. However, we got there in the end, so got bits of footage and I've got various images and drawings of Puffing Billy and the Killingworth engines from that time, so I can basically just see how they work. I'm just seeing if I can just drop on Agonoria's motion on top, but I decided it's a good deal different. So I do try and change it as much as I can. You can see the footage here of the engine actually going along. There's quite a lot of moving parts that will need to get animated in the game, so we just need to be able to actually have a framework to animate those parts around. So this bit right here, this is the main hinge at the back of the locomotive that, not main hinge, it's sort of the framework at the back that the pistons operate within. So they pump up through these racks, these keep the pistons vertically aligned as well, and they allow the motion to be transferred over to the beam with parallel linkage, which is a Bolton & Watt engine, a Bolton & Watt patent being used on a steam locomotive, which I don't think there's any other examples of that happening. I don't think Agonoria had anything like this attached to it either. As you can see, I'm actually finding it quite hard to find good detailed drawings of the top of the engine. That's my favourite one there. I like this one too. However, this one at the 45 degree or the quarter view seems to show it off best. I think later on I realised it's actually easier to pop the image onto another screen. There we go. So I'm just trying to calculate where it will go. Looking at the image there, you can see these bars actually go down and anchor themselves onto the boiler. So I'm just trying to see if I can create this anchor. There we go, I figured it out. Clever Steve. Right, so you can see there's an anchor on the boiler there. It's like a little triangular bracket where these two rods, these actually don't move, these aren't animated, these literally just hold up the framework. A lot of this is just frames. The engine looks more complicated than it actually is, so when you actually look at it in motion you think, wow, there's loads of bits moving. In reality it's just a beam engine with a lot of holding up to do. I'm just going to accelerate the footage here a little bit. I'm just doing quite a lot of comparison here just to get the scale right. The reason the whole thing looks off is because I made the pistons way too big. I do go and adjust them, but later on we're going to get some compression artifacts here. I'm just going to wind forward for a bit. Oh dear. Yeah, and see I'm sorting out the frame, making it smaller. Still not got it in the right place because I haven't sorted out the pistons. Let's see, get rid of some of these artifacts. Compression, doesn't like it at 6 times. Go down to that. Okay, here I am. I think this isn't me figuring out I've done the pistons wrong. There we go, I'm highlighting them, grabbing them, whatever blender tool it is, moving them to the right location, shrinking them down, realising as well that after I shrink them down the steam inlet pipe is going to just be intercepting everything, so I need to move that out the way soon, so I think I'll grab that. If I remember correctly, I'll just grab it and move it off somewhere else to be fixed later on. Everything's moving into place now, it looks a lot better. Is me like, oh yeah, that looks so much better. Grab that, move that away, don't need that, get rid of that, so we only work on one side, readjust the piping. Realise it doesn't quite fully work, but leave it for now. Here's where I realise it's in the complete wrong place. So there's these two cross beams, or these cross rods that actually truss up the section at the top. It just intercepts all the piping, so just get rid of that entirely. Just move it there and get rid of them too. Put them back later on. And get another truss rod as well and put it on the other side of the boiler. These just attached to the top of the boiler by the looks of it in that drawing. I mean, there's a lot more detailing on there that I'm actually going to put into the engine. There's like bits of metal and other loads of inlet valves and all sorts of stuff. That's just going to be way too much detail to model into Transport Fever. It would just be a very, very clumsy looking model, especially when you look at it from a distance. It would just be so complicated you won't even be able to tell what it is. And Transport Fever is not best known for its, how should I put it, performance. So minimising all the polygons is ideal, which is why my models look quite low poly as it is. I try to keep them low poly. If they were really, really ridiculously high poly one, it would take a lot more work to do. And the game would run poorer. I make them relatively low poly, so I don't have to worry about LODs really. They're already probably at LOD 2 as it is. So you know they're quite low poly, and then there's high detail parts of it. It's weird, but I don't need to really use the LODs. I've not had any issues on my relatively poor performing laptop with LODs. Here I'm just sorting out that A-frame. You can see at the front this holds up the beam as an anchor point, as a pivot point. I do believe that actually moves, but I won't be animating it because it moves such a small amount. Agonoria has something very similar holding up her beams, but they also did not move. Straightening up, I'm figuring out that the main bar I've used, the asset, is actually not straight at all, so I'm just straightening it out here to be going through the middle of the A-frame. Looking at the funnel, I do notice that there is actually one truss rod going all the way over to the chimney holding the back up. It needs a lot of support, this. I don't think William Headley and Hackworth, when they built this engine, actually cared a whole lot for simplicity. They were just like, how do we hold this up? And someone said, I've used Meccano before, we can do this. Keep opening paint.net by accident. It's right next to the it's not right next to any button, it's just underneath edit mode, so I keep accidentally clicking it on. So right here I'm actually getting the beams. These are the beams I used for Agonoria. I'm using them again here. I'm going to modify them quite heavily for Puffin Billy. Just trying to get the anchor point, so where that little dot is, that's where the animation will be able to pivot from. So if I put the pivot point exactly where I want it to actually move, it'll be a lot easier to animate. Agonoria had the pivot point in the middle, which is why it animates a little bit wonkily. I've learned a lot more about animating since then, so we do put the anchor points now where you want it to pivot. I'm just trying to figure out why all this isn't lining up. Just me fiddling about with Blender. Why isn't it working? So frustrating, especially when it's made out of loads of tiny little parts and it's not just one big model. But there we go, it looks relatively clean from a distance. I actually choose to work on this side of the locomotive mainly because everything's at its maximum reach on this side. The way the axle's set up at the bottom, it's already pointing up, so we have the whole maximum travel, so we don't have to guess about where to put stuff. And here is where I also figure out that the cylinders are out of line with the motion, so everything has to be moved a little bit in. Just moving the A-frames in to match as well. It's a very tedious process. This was pain in the backside. I didn't realise how complicated the top part of Puffin Billy was. Animating this is going to be a real pain. That's going to be a whole separate video. I was only meant to have 3 parts this video, which is make the basics, detail it, and then animate it. At this stage, this is make the basics, make the motion, detail it, animate it, do texturing. It's going to be quite a multi-part thing. So I'm hoping that over the course of May, is it May? I think it is May. Over the course of May, I'll be able to basically show you the progress of Puffin Billy. It takes about a month or so, I'd say, to make an engine of this complex. It took about a month or 2 to do the Peña engines and Rocket. The original, when I made that first time around, took about 2-3 months. So they do take quite a while, especially when I space it out. I can obviously sit down and do it all in one day, but and you know, you have a life. You know, if I did it about an hour to 45 minutes, just to do a little bit of this and that and the other, and the animation will take a few separate sessions. I imagine I'll be recording separate sessions and editing them together and just talking over it. It won't be as easy as Novelty, if you remember that video. Because most of it happens on the outside of the engine. It has to be pretty perfect, so things can't just like phase through each other like they can with Novelty. I will actually endeavour to make everything connect as meshingly as possible, just like with Peña models where the gears actually mesh. That took a reasonably long time. I wish I recorded that process, but hey ho. So what I've found out here, by the way, in the video, is that when the pistons are going to go up and down, they're going to hit the crossbeam. And I actually had a look at the original drawing, and they do actually have the same issue I encountered. So they did the same method as well of moving the crossbeam out of the way, which is also a hinge for another part of the motion, which I'm going to add in a little bit, and just messing around with Blender here, just trying to get a relatively simple looking curve for this crossbeam. So that goes in there like that, looks alright. Move it across the other side and realise it's completely the wrong size and shape. Just try and get everything into the right place. It is actually rather difficult working with this sort of locomotive. It's not exactly... I would say it's symmetrical, but I don't think it can be exactly symmetrical because of the sheer way it's done. Trying to build it from a non-symmetrical standpoint to make it symmetrical is quite difficult. If I was to start off with symmetry, it'd been fine. But I haven't started off that way. I've done a lot of it by eye. Oh, getting a few compression errors here. You can see the cogs and the gears inside the engine as well. Still need to put the gears on the axles themselves, so you can see them turning. Just adding this is the main rod that will turn the crank, which will turn the gears, turn the wheels. It's already at, as you can see, it's at maximum travel at the moment, so you can see how high up it's going to be. Move that in, it's a bit too far out. There we go. So here we have a sort of semblance of how the engine itself will look. It's still missing one piece of animation. I'm just trying to figure out which one it is. I'm looking at the screen now thinking, what am I missing? And it does actually come to me that I am missing the watt parallel motion. So we just add this. I'll take that and make it a separate object so I can use the same textures, and it's much easier just to take something that's already basically what I need. Move it into the right place. Trying to also get the anchor point to be exactly where I want it to be, which is at the back, because it will pivot at the back. It's just going to be a simple 4-frame animation, so the anchor point will be there. Put it in there and extend it out to the arm. Very low poly, make it look like it's hinged on. There we go. It looks good. It looks like it does. So now I take everything from this side and I try and pop it on the other side. Not that this actually matters with the model viewer. This is just a proof of concept to see if everything works. So just turn that, rotate that to roughly where it's right, rotate that down, and there we have halfway travel. And that's Puffin Billy. At this point, just also adjust this crank axle on this side, and at that point you have Puffin Billy, for the most part. There's quite a lot more detailing to do. You need to add some rivets, and I need to make an entire tender. So, you know, that's the next video, so stay tuned for that one. I hope you enjoy these. I'll be doing more of them. Bye.